Are we? Are we
Hello.
live? There we are.
We're live.
We're live. Okay. Good morning. Kris has just told me he's not talking today, so thanks for that one. Just as we start and go live. Yeah. Good morning,
Indeed.
everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to quickly introduce our guests, and then we'll get into our topic. So today's guests are Scot Turner, founder of Auden Hospitality, and Sophie Taverner, head chef of Lost in the Lanes. Today we want to discuss changing career paths. It's something I think everyone actually on this live has some experience of, some more so than others. Sophie, you were a human rights lawyer before you entered into your role that you are now, so we'll definitely deep dive into that one. And Scot, you left a career in hotels, then worked in independent restaurants, and now obviously you've founded Auden Hospitality. Yep. So we've definitely got lots to pick at today, I think, for this discussion. So I suppose let's start with, why did you make the decisions to kind of abruptly change your career paths? I don't know who wants to go first. Maybe Sophie. Let's go with you.
Sure. It's a big question. I mean, so many things play into it, to be fair. It wasn't actually that calculated decision. I moved country and I couldn't practice law where I moved to. I moved to Spain for personal reasons, family. I had family living there. And so I didn't really, to be honest, when I left my first career, I had no idea what I was going to do next. And I kind of just moved to Spain on a bit of a like wing and a prayer, like, what am I going to do now? Started cooking for a friend of mine who was running a catering business, just doing like big weddings and things, and was just helping out, doing bits and pieces, and kind of fell in love with it. I'd always loved food, always loved cooking. And just completely fell in love with it. And everybody telling me that maybe it wasn't a good idea to become a chef at 31 didn't stop me. So I was like, I still want to do it. Despite all the sort of horror stories that I was told, I was like, no, I still really want to do this. And so then found myself in a restaurant, pretty much washing dishes and doing a few little bits and pieces here and there and just learning. And then, so I kind of fell into it by accident, but fell in love with it instantly. And it just kind of went on from there.
Okay. Do you think going into it a little bit older is maybe why you've stayed in it? Do you think if you'd done it when you were younger?
It definitely gave me some perspective. My old career, if I made a mistake, someone might get deported or go to jail. And it definitely gave me a bit of perspective that I am cooking dinner. And as important as it is to get it right, and you want people to enjoy doing it, to enjoy eating it, to enjoy the experience, little bit of perspective of not getting too bogged down in the kind of stress of it all, definitely, I think, has helped me stick with it for maybe longer than I might have otherwise. I think if I'd gone into it at 20, I would have burnt out in a couple of years, and that would have been it. But I think being able to kind of take a step back and be like, oh yeah, you know what, this is actually supposed to be fun for the people eating it and for the people doing it. It's helped me stay in it for longer, for sure.
Can I just ask, what were the horror stories you were told when you said to people, well, I'm going to be a chef?
Well, everyone says, don't be a chef. It's hard work. It's long hours. It's antisocial. And I think mostly the people that say that are the people that don't work in hospitality. Because actually most people, certainly the people that stick in hospitality, they love it. And actually, it is hard work and it is long hours and it can be antisocial. But actually the payoff far outweighs the negatives in my experience.
Thank you.
And Scot, what about you? Why the changes? And give everyone a little bit of background on your changes, because I definitely just skipped through them there like they were nothing. So
I mean, Sophie's just proved the point of, throughout my career, the amount of times I've heard we're not brain surgeons, we're not going to kill anyone, we just feed people, is definitely rung true on that. But no, I've pivoted twice. I mean, first time I grew up in hotels. I was in hotels for 15 years, luxury hotels, kind of worked my way up the ladder as you do. My last position was hotel manager. We opened the new Intercontinental, which is now Conrad St. James. And my next kind of move on the career path would be to go to hotel GM. And I realized that I just love doing food and beverage, and I love restaurants. I love bars. I love the thrill of it. And actually what I found in that job is that I always found myself going back towards the past. And my director of F&B at the time was kind of kicking me away from it. And I was sat down with a mentor at the time and just going, listen, what's next? Because I love F&B, I love restaurants, I love bars, but I don't want to just be going to different four walls all the time doing the same role. I'd kind of done big volume hotels. I'd worked for Dorchester Collection, Intercontinental. I'd worked for big brands. And he was like, why don't you do restaurants? And it was just so happens at the time he had a job going, probably right time, right person for both of us. And he was like, "Why don't you come and work for me?" And so I took an ops director job. It was based in Dubai. And we were running independent restaurants. It was still kind of in the hotel space, but it was across Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Went to run independent restaurants. And I always say that 15 years of running restaurants in hotels, and I did 7 in independent restaurants, and I had much more fun in the 7 than I did in the 15, because it was just great. I went across 12 different countries doing projects, and some of the things that we did were phenomenal. Some of the chefs we worked with were amazing. So yeah, that was that. And then during that time it was bought out by an investment company. They were Saudi based. They built the business up to 85 restaurants across 16 brands. And my role ended up being COO. And it was kind of the same thing as when I was hotel manager. I'd kind of got too far away from what I truly loved doing, which was building brands, being with teams on the floor, making an impact to guests. And I was sitting more talking to investment officers and CEOs and things like that, and talking about strategy and exit plans, than I was getting into the nooks and crannies of changing menus and brand strategy and marketing and stuff like that. And it just, for the second time in my career, it was just like, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. Let's go and do what I truly love. And so I left for the first time ever without a job, and I was walking around London thinking, what should I do next? I kind of convinced myself I was going to be COO of another restaurant company, and went for a few interviews, and it was kind of same different situation. And for the first time ever, I just had this like burning desire to go, do you know what? Can you build something of your own, and can you do something of your own? And so as you do, I went back to my wife and was like, I've got this great idea. And she went, yeah, another one. What is it this time? Me and Kris have spoke about this. We swapped stories on this a few times, but what's your big idea this time? And rolled her eyes, and I was like, I want to do something of my own. And where my niche is kind of using that 7 years in restaurants, where I had loads of fun and really did learn how to run restaurants differently. And we go back into hotels and we teach them how to think more like restaurateurs and less like hoteliers, to really look at their F&B differently, to have a bit more fun, kind of get it successful, bring in the local community, worry less about in-house guests. And we've had lots of fun doing it. And we've done some bits around UK, Europe. We're about to start working in Asia with a hotel group as well, and doing some stuff in the US as well. So yeah, we've kind of built over the last couple of years using the experience.
So successful pivots. So that's all good.
Touch wood.
What were your both of yours biggest concerns and fears before doing that change? Because a lot of people don't make that change because they're scared for whatever reasons they might be. What were yours? And I suppose Kris as well, because you have done the same. So what were the biggest kind of fears and concerns ahead of that choice? Sophie?
I mean, I'd invested a lot of time and energy into training to be a lawyer. It's not a small thing to kind of qualify. And I'd been practicing for a few years, and I actually loved my career. I was really happy doing it. It wasn't sort of running away from something. And so one of the biggest fears was kind of losing time invested, if you like. And I guess when you're completely, it wasn't even a pivot. It was like total kind of torch the ground and change craft completely. So yeah, I guess that probably was a huge part of it. Was like, one, all this time invested into something is in my head at the time was like, maybe that's lost. And then the other, I guess, was just a fear that I'd regret that decision, and I'd turn around in 2, 3, 4 years and be like, what am I doing? I want to go back. But I think you can always go back. And so the sort of knowledge that actually I could have gone back to it if it hadn't worked, kind of gave me the confidence to just take the jump. And like I say, I wasn't leaving my career to go into being a chef. I was leaving my career to sort of, actually for me, it was about moving country, and I couldn't practice abroad because I wasn't qualified to practice. And so then it was kind of just taking a step back and thinking like, what's next? And then the fear of getting into being a chef was definitely a little bit about that. It was such a switch up in terms of I'd been very much in an office, kind of more, 9 to 5. It was never 9 to 5 as a lawyer, but like that kind of environment where my weekends were my own, and I, did see family and friends and do all of that. And the fear, I think, going into hospitality and chefing in particular, was that I would lose some of that balance. But I loved it so much that it wasn't such a big fear. And actually, in the end, it didn't. I find my balance is quite good. It's different, but I do still have that balance. It's just in a different way. So, yeah.
Do you want me to go next? So the first time when I left hotels, genuinely, the biggest fear I had was ringing my mum and telling her, first of all, I was throwing away my career in hotels that she'd paid for me to go to university. And then most of all, telling her that I was leaving the country and going to Dubai. So that was the biggest fear. And I think, I always remember like driving down the Sheikh Zayed Road when we first landed in Dubai and thinking, this is brilliant. Like, let's do it. And it was just it was very different. There wasn't really a fear. There was more of an excitement because it was such a big change from what we were doing before in hotels in London and what have you, that it was, you kind of just went on adrenaline. You went on the crest of the wave. And before you knew it, it was like, okay, I actually I quite enjoy this when you came up for air at the other side. When I left employment to set up my own business, I have a young family, I have a house, and it was worrying about paying the bills. In all honesty, and probably still today, the biggest fear is paying the bills. And the reason why is I've always been an operator when I was going through my career. And I've never had to sell, and more importantly, never had to sell myself. So all of a sudden, then when you've got your own business and you're having to go and sell what you do, and you're having to talk about yourself, and you're having to go and pitch to clients, and you're having to go and find clients, I found that incredibly difficult, and I'm getting better at it. But it's still the thing that probably concerns me the most every morning when I get up is, where's the next project coming from, client coming from, because I need to make sure that we can still pay the bills. So I think that's probably still there today. It's just I'm learning how to get better at it. So it's kind of easing slightly. But yeah, I think probably every business owner that I would talk to would probably have the same concerns.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest ones, is that you're taught from a very early age, at a school age, that you have to get a job and you have to get on the pay ladder, and then you have to be a good boy or a girl, and eventually someone might give you some more money for it. And to throw all of that confine away and go out on your own without any security, there's no safety net. Unless you're sat on savings, which not many of us are nowadays, there's absolutely nothing to stop you from falling if it doesn't become a success. And I think that's probably the biggest barrier to entry, is that actually you just need to back yourself. And if you feel like you've got an idea, if you've got the experience, then go all in. Because if you do regret it and you've left on good terms with your previous employer, you can always, as Sophie says, you can take a step back. So that's the hardest thing. And then, as Scott says, running your own organization, especially when you start employing people and you start to scale, there are challenges there that mean that every single day the pressure is there in order to make sure it's sustainable. But Cara, you've also done set up your own thing, and so what were your thoughts and fears going into it for the first time?
Probably similar to what's been discussed. Definitely with Scott, I had a family. I'm the sole kind of breadwinner. I was like, I have to make sure that I can pay for everything. So financially, yes, that was probably failure. I hate not being good at stuff. So I was really worried after 10 years of doing something I knew that I was good at, of failing at doing something completely new. So that was definitely a worry. But I think once you take the kind of leap, I've definitely realized, and I've only been doing it for 6 months, but things tend to work out their way out. I don't know why, but they do. And you do have days where you wake up and you're like, what am I doing? How am I going to make this work? But then you equally have days where you're like, yes, like I've done something great and it was worth it. It was all worth it. So I'm still very much on the learning curve, I think, with this. But initially it was definitely, I don't want to be bad at this. Like, I really don't. I always like to be good at everything I do. So failure was a massive part for me. So yeah.
This is an interesting mindset shift, though, when you start your own business, is that actually you do make some mistakes. Like, you make a lot of mistakes and there's some big howlers in there. But actually I found that you're more progressive, you're more not necessarily optimistic all the time, but you are much more of a can-do attitude. Okay, how do we work around this? What can we do next? Because there is that lack of safety net. So you become a lot more resilient, I think. And as you say, there are some good days, there are some bad days, but they do tend to work out, providing you put the time and energy in. It's becoming too lax that sometimes then bites you in the arse a few months down the road, where you think, it's coasting along fine, I don't need to do anything now. And you're like, oh my God, whoops. Now I got to backpedal.
I think I definitely take mistakes easier, like take them on the chin easier than I did when I was employed. I don't know why. I seem to just kind of go, right, that was a mistake, don't do that again. Whereas when I was employed, I was like, oh, I've got to fix this. Was it my fault? Is it someone else's fault? There was other people around you, so that you were kind of like, can I deflect this? Is it actually my mistake? But yeah, I definitely take mistakes a lot easier now, I think, than I did before. Sophie, have you taken anything from your previous career into this one? Scott mentioned obviously that he has, but what about yourself? Is there any transition? Is there any similarity?
Weirdly, I think there's quite a lot in it. Like it's so different. Like there was, you know, I was a lot in an office. I was deep, but I was dealing with people a lot in a very different way. But there was a lot of kind of managing your relationships with people. I find as a chef is just so important, and the more senior you get, the more important it becomes, because you're responsible for a team of people around you, and you're kind of navigating, making sure that people are looked after and they're feeling happy and cared for and supported in their role. And that is something that was definitely something I had as a lawyer as well. You're dealing with, in that case, with clients, but you're making sure that they feel heard and supported, and it's actually very like transferable skills. And the other one is just being organized, like just this really strategic level of organization that you obviously have to have as a lawyer translates massively into a kitchen, like the ability to kind of be strategic, think ahead. Yeah, massive. That's a big one. I think probably that's the main one actually. That's really, from a really early stage, I had a lot to learn in terms of the actual like technique and skill, but in terms of being able to be strategic in a kitchen, and I was able to kind of jump straight into that part of it. And I think that really helped me progress quite quickly. As you know, I was 31 when I started cooking, and I progressed quite quickly because I had that level of organization and kind of strategic thinking that you need in a kitchen. Like, it's so important. Yeah.
And what's Lost in the Lanes like as a restaurant? What, because I have never been, so what is it like as a restaurant?
It's been on a journey. It started before, but it's been open for about 6 years, I think. I hope I'm right in saying that. And it started half the size, very small, all-day breakfast cafe, doing like really fantastic breakfast, and got a really great reputation for just being a really great spot for breakfast. And then during COVID, the owner Natalie doubled the size of it, and it's now sort of morphed over the last year and a half into an all-day dining. So we just opened dinner services about 2 months ago. So now we're doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it's been a sort of slow, organic growth. But yeah, we're now kind of doing a bit of everything. So it's quite a big beast. But it's managed to maintain its sense of kind of being quite a small independent restaurant. I mean, we can get up to about 270 covers a day, which can feel quite sort of intense. We're a very small kitchen, and quite a small team, but we kind of transition from that kind of cafe breakfast vibe into a slightly more kind of elegant restaurant in the evening, and it works, and everyone seems to be pretty happy with it. So
yeah, I understand why it needs to be organized.
yeah, it's quite a lot to manage for sure.
What are the kind of top three things you think that both of you have learned about yourselves through this kind of transition period of different careers, either in business or personally or both? Scott, what about you? What do you think?
To go first? So I think the first one, it's funny, I gave a talk actually to some students last week on the journey of Auden, and some of the learnings that I put in there. The first one was like, what's your niche? What's your story? And there's an amazing clip on the diary of the CEO with the CEO of Dermalogica, and she goes, piss off the 80% to focus on your 20, because they're the ones who are truly going to buy. And I think when I first set up Auden, it wasn't focusing on FM hotels. It was, I'll do anything. I'll take any money going. And it wasn't until I niched down that actually it started going in the right trajectory. So I think definitely niche down. The other one was embrace failure. and then fail fast. So don't sit on ego and sit on kind of stubbornness of something might work. If it isn't working, just like move on. Don't get an attachment to it. So, and then if we're picking three, the other one would be build a community. I think, we talk about it a lot with restaurants and how can you get a like raving fans and stuff like that. But I think even when you have your own business, I think building that community of people who can support you and can help you along the way is huge. And then I guess the learning curve of me in employment pivoting would be like, don't be scared to change. If it's something you truly love, just go for it and it'll figure itself out. And Sophie hit the nail on the head. If it doesn't work or you don't like it or it's just not for you, you can go back. Like, even if it's not to your old employer, you can go back somewhere else. You'll never lose that experience. So if there's something niggling away, like feed the goat, see if it works. And if it doesn't, you can go back.
Okay.
Feed the go. I love that.
Feed the goat. And he will score. It's a football analogy.
It's hockey, no?
Could be.
Sophie, what about you? What do you think you've learned about yourself? Or
I think that the sort of massive thing is that, failing fast. I like that. That's a good one. But like, it was not being afraid to look stupid, because you're going to learn you're going to do something for the first time all the time. And actually, it's one of the things I love about hospitality is that there's always going to be more first times for you if you want to keep growing. And so, yeah, don't be afraid to look a little bit stupid at the beginning, because actually, the more questions you ask, the quicker you're going to learn and the more you're going to grow. So that was a big one. Especially, coming into it a bit later in life, you want to seem like you've got it all together, and actually being able to sort of humble yourself a little bit and be like, actually, I really don't know what I'm doing here, and I need to learn, and I want to learn from good people. That's really been massively important for me. Kind of tied to that is having resilience. I'm more resilient than I maybe thought I was when I was in my 20s, and just keep pushing through and keep going. A third one is a tricky one. People. I think that what I learned about myself was that actually across both of my careers, massive thing has been working with people. I love it. I really enjoy it in different capacities. And so that learning about myself is that I think whatever I do in my life, it will always be centered around working with people, whether that's feeding them, looking after them, working with them. Like those kind of like community relationships are really important.
brilliant.
Okay. Cara,
What
about you? I'm intrigued.
I think
What have you learned?
I think I'm still learning. I'm not sure. Probably similar. I'm more resilient than I probably thought I gave myself credit for. Yeah. And I think believe in yourself, because it's always easy for everyone to believe in you, and take that kind of on board. So many people said you can do it, you'll be fine. And like you said, you can always go back, you can get another job, just have a go. So I think believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing. I think that's the really key things. I think I've definitely learned from making a leap to change what you do normally. So yeah. So sometimes it's good to step out of your comfort zone, right?
That's where the growth happens. That's where the growth happens.
Yeah. Before we jumped on this, I did send you some stats, and one of them was Randstad's employer brand research, and it revealed a quarter of UK workers plan to change career in the next 6 months. That's up year on year from 2021. And the biggest reasons were better work-life balance and lack of career opportunities. Does any of that surprise any of you, or is that something you thought, you know what, that makes sense?
I'm surprised the number. I was surprised by how high it was, but in terms of the reasons, not surprising at all. I think the minute people feel stagnant is when they start to look elsewhere, and then people need to feel like they've got a balance in their life. Like that doesn't surprise me at all, and I can see it, in managing a team, wanting to make sure that they all feel like they've got proper opportunities to grow, to learn things that they want to learn. Like massively, it completely changes your retention of your staff, because the minute people feel like they've got something that they're working towards and that you're supporting them in that, they'll stick around.
A career development pathway is so important, because otherwise you're just coming in and you're hauling ass every day and you don't know where you're going, what the point of it is. You have to have that futuristic outlook. Great point. Scott?
It doesn't surprise me, and I think it's never been easier to pivot and do other things than it is today, with everything that you can do online, and videos and YouTube and TikTok, and you can be building side hustles really easily and flip when you need to, and go from there, can't you? It's like it's yeah. I just never think it's been easier. So if you don't give people what they crave, then they're going to go elsewhere. And I think that's what we're seeing in businesses we're working with. Is sometimes I think the newer workforce that's coming through are a lot more open and honest than probably we were. Like they don't care about saying this isn't what we want to do, but while we're here, we want to learn X, Y, Z that's going to take us forward. And if you can't give them that, they'll just go and do it earlier. So I think there's never been more a time where we have to invest in people more, and we have to be open. And as hospitality people, and I speak from experience, sometimes we're quite selfish, that we want to just think, why don't people want to do this forever? And I think now we have to embrace that people might use it as a transient career to get to where they want to be, and we have to help them, because we have to make use of the amazing talent while it's here, and be open to the fact that it might move on. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me, and I think it just puts a lot more pressure on people to do the right thing.
Such an interesting one from a recruitment perspective as well. Have you worked with any brands currently that are advertising for people who don't currently work in hospitality just to come and do a couple of shifts a week? Is that something that you've seen?
No, we're seeing gig working come a lot more now, into people like the Brigades of the world and Stints and people like that, where people want more flexible working. So that's probably more so than recruiting out of the industry. I think in central London, you've never really had that real entry level 16, 17, 18-year-olds. And because it's harder to bring people from outside the UK now, you're not getting kind of the European workers that you might have done before, that use it as an entry into learn English and stuff like that. So that's where we're finding the gig workers are kind of filling that gap a little bit. And again, like, some of these companies are doing a really cool thing in terms of them being able to rate you being able to rate them. It's very much kind of a two-way street. So it's kind of replaced that 0-hour worker that we always used to have. So I think you can definitely use it and embrace it. So yeah, I think it's focused more on that than it is kind of new people coming in, to an extent.
Yeah, just saying, like, Sophie is obviously a successful pivoter, I think, if that's the correct term to use. But I'm just wondering, like, how many other individuals out there who have watched Great British Menu, who have seen, the cooking shows on TV and gone, do you know what? I fancy giving that a go, but still remaining the safety of my current employment, whether that's insurance, whatever it might be, and giving them almost like a part-time career pathway, so they can use their spare time to be able to try out hospitality and give it a test run. Like, maybe it's something that they enjoy so much that they end up leaving their full-time career and taking it on with a whole new level of skill set, maybe managerial experience of a higher level, or perhaps project management. Do you know what I mean? Like, there may be something in that at some stage, especially if we do continue to struggle with migrant workers. Thought for the day.
That's a good point.
That might be a topic for another one. Sophie, have you had anyone come to you with this? Well, now you're head chef of a restaurant. Do you have anyone who's come to you similar to what Kris is saying, that, like, I really want to have a go at this, but I this isn't my career choice?
It's not something we've had. Definitely a lot of people who are looking for that kind of, like, casual part-time work. A lot of that. There seems to be lots of people. Again, it gives them that flexibility. They get to control their hours. They get to control how much they work and where they work. So there's a lot of that. But no one that's like, oh, actually, I want to test this out. I do have a couple of career changes in my team as well. Like, one guy who pivoted at 40, was a school teacher, and now is one of my chefs. So there is definitely, like, people kind of wanting to get into it, but yeah, not so many yet that have come in looking to just kind of learn about the industry, although we're totally open to it.
Yeah. Scott, have you had an experience of people doing changing?
Honestly, no, I don't. No, I've not really had any experience of it, so it's interesting to hear Sophie's done it. But maybe people seeing you and that you've done it might be an inspiration and kind of goes into that environment where it's a bit safer and stuff like that. Maybe is something that might encourage people, I guess. But yeah, we haven't seen it that much around and about.
Yeah.
I guess it goes back to what Sophie said at the beginning time, where if you say like I'm going into hospitality, they're like, oh God, no, don't, like, you know, you're going to work. Whereas if the culture of our industry is changing so massively that at some stage that PR brand issue will start to die away, and actually people go, oh, okay, you're going to go work in hospitality. That's okay. That's cool. Good for you. Like, rather than, no, don't do it. You'll ruin your life. Like, I think once that becomes an attractive proposition from a professional point of view, then who knows what sort of talent we can recruit, right?
Yeah.
Agree.
Another interesting fact before we finish that is the average person will change career 5 to 7 times. I was trying to figure out how I had changed a career from doing work, and I don't know. That's a lot, isn't it? Do you think I think that's quite a lot.
That's a huge amount.
Career industry maybe, but not necessarily your profession or your career. No.
Yeah, I suppose it's what you. I mean, I
wonder how that's calculated.
I started earning money, and I was like, so babysitter, pot washer, then student. Does that count? I don't know. But it's like, well, I'm glad you've all said that, because I thought that seems like a lot of changes. Yeah,
very odd. Very odd. I quite liked Kieran Bailey's post up here, which says, be content to be a chapter in someone's book, but work hard to make it the most interesting chapter. So going back to Scott's point about helping people in their career, that's a really, really decent comment. Thank you. And shout out to Mark G. Henry, who I think has been here for every single episode so far, dialing in from outside the UK. So there we go. Big up, Mark. Well done. Right.
Well, any closing comments? Any advice for anyone who's teetering on the edge of should I
do it? Take the leap.
Yeah, I think we're probably all in agreement with that, are we? Just give it a go.
Pull the trigger. Yeah. Oh, what did you say, Scott? Feed the go.
Feed the goat.
The goat. The goat.
Oh, the goat. I was going to like feed the goat. It's like forward momentum. Like goat.
No, feed the goat.
Now you've lost me. Feeding goat.
Okay. Right. So there's a term in football that's feed the goat and he will score. Right? Greatest of all time. So if you feed the goat, you're going to score, right? If you never feed the goat, he's never going to score.
You're kidding.
I'm going to share it with you after. I'm going to text you it, just so that you can educate yourself with the greatest of all time.
For those who comment, if you did see the dad joke that was slid in there, you're kidding. Oh dear.
On that note, I'm gonna wrap this up.
Exactly. This is where I need Kieran to back me up here. He'll understand what we're talking about.
He already has.
What did he say? Exactly. Honestly, you're so last year, Kris. So last year.
So preppy.
Sophie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Really great chat. I've enjoyed it. Kris, I feel like you've been listening a lot to this one, so obviously you've been taking it in. So
yeah, sometimes it's nice to take a bit of a backseat and just go with the flow, right?
It is. So we will be back next week. We will be joined by Louisa Ellis, who's a former MasterChef Professionals contestant and a freelance chef, and looking to open a new site. I believe it's this month, so we'll be having a nice, interesting chat with her, and possibly one other, because my other guest cancelled on me very last minute. So we'll be, he knows who he is.
Oh dear.
So we will possibly have someone else, but TBC. But thank you, Scott. Thank you, Sophie. Kris, pleasure as always.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.